in September of 1986, bro, we get the Cro-Mags, Age of Quarrel. My goodness, it's driving me nuts, dude. That word is driving me nuts. It's okay though. But anyways, this is the debut studio record for the Cro-Mags, New York hardcore band.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what I'll say about this, like right off the bat. I grew up a punk kid, like a punk rocker. I didn't get into hardcore until I was like probably close to 20, like 19, 20 years old, because I just ran into some old friends who were like used to be punk rockers, still kind of were, but they got into hardcore. They were going that direction and they were in bands. And so when I first heard the Cro-Mags stuff, I was like a little older already. I wasn't like a young high school kid or anything. And so I liked it. I bought it. I listened to it a lot. I never really learned a lot about the history of the band. It's just a very common theme within my life about music that I enjoy and love. But after a few years of listening to this, there was a here, let me just say it like this. Let me read something real quick and then I'll let you respond to that. How's that sound? Nitty?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just making sure that we're on the same page. So, as we all know, I'm not a metal fan. That just means I'm really picky with crossover stuff. I love Integrity. I love the band Wisdom in Chains, but I don't generally like my hardcore and my punk to have too much metal in it. Also, that being said, there are a couple of bands that are incredibly important to me that pull directly from Cro-Mags playback. Like it's bands that like when you listen to them, you go, oh, Cro-Mags. And so for that reason, like this is a band that I've always really appreciated. I haven't listened to this in ages, dude. Like, no pun intended. It's been a long time. It's been a long time since I've listened to this record. But right off the bat, I heard a lot of where bands like Righteous Jams and Iron Age get a lot of their style from. And I'd forgotten about that a little bit. Like, I forgot how directly affected those bands were by an album like this, much less, the entire discography of a band like the Cro-Mags. There's so many bands from the East Coast that are a derivative of this band. I don't even think of it until I go listen to the album. And it's not direct copies of them either. Like I mentioned, Righteous Jams out of Boston. It's more direct vocal influence than anything to me. The way he pronounces his words and influxes of his voice taking a sharp turn upwards at the end of words, I don't want to, he goes, like that a lot in his vocal sentences. It's a very unique, or it is very unique to the Cro-Mags specifically, until later bands that started adopting that style. But with bands like Iron Age, it's way more of a musical offspring to the Cro-Mags than the like thrash infused hardcore riffs, more akin to like early Metallica than say Minor Threat. So you have Cro-Mags, who is the guys that are inspiring bands like Iron Age, whereas a lot of hardcore bands they're going to cite Minor Threat as their inspiration. I don't know. There's a lot of very Metallica-esque riffs throughout this album. Still a little bit of vocal similarities, but I hear it way more with the guitar riffs and tone than anything else with bands like Iron Age. I've heard and I've actually read that early on, Iron Age shows were the closest you could get to replicating 80s Cro-Mag shows. I can tell you that I was there for a lot of those early shows in Houston and Austin, and I got goosebumps when I used to watch Iron Age play. And I'm not trying to get into an Iron Age conversation necessarily, but that's why the Cro-Mags are important to me, because that band is a band that I got to watch come up and start doing their thing. And I knew immediately, oh, this is our version of that. And that would make a record like Age of Quarrel more important to me. I saw Iron Age at this place called Walters in Washington. I think it was the first time I saw them. It's probably around March 2006 when their first album. It was a record release show. They dropped an album called Constant Struggle. It was on Young Blood Records. Might have been a tour kickoff show. I can't remember, but it was right around the time they released that LP. But the place was packed. And I remember that the intro is called Weird Dust Violator, or The Violator. I can't remember exactly what it's called. Dude, it was absolutely mayhem in that place. It was insane. And every time I read something about Cro-Mags, the way that they describe the live shows and the energy, I literally like hear Iron Age songs in my head. It's the weirdest thing, man. Like as I was listening to this, it was bittersweet, man, because Wade Allison was a friend of mine and he's no longer with us. And he was the guitar player for Iron Age. And like, it's it's insane, man. That show was one of the best shows I've ever seen. Honestly, if I did like a top 10, top 5 shows of my entire life, that would be one of them.
Mm-hmm.
They put on an incredible live performance. All the dudes in that band were very cool. It was interesting, dude. The guy Jason Tarpey, who sang for them, was always really nice, and he was like one of those guys that was like him and Wade, R.I.P. Dude, was like they were like the popular guys, but they were really like humble and nice. I don't know, man. I don't know why I can't separate the two. You know, my boy Ribs, who ended up being the namesake for my son. Honestly, dude, like his name's Justin. My kid's name is named after his middle name. Ended up playing bass with those guys. So listening to this record, I know I'm going on a long tangent. I'm sorry. It was insane, man. Like I was driving when I started listening to it. I had to pull over, man, because like I need Cro-Mags to exist and I need this album to have come out
Yeah, man.
to in order to get Iron Age, which was so important to me. And I don't know. It was like almost like I hate to say it like this, but like a spiritual like situation. Like I'm listening to it and I felt it in my bones, dude. Like I was like, there was parts where I dang near cried, and it wasn't because I was like necessarily hearing a lyric that
I was gonna say Cro-Mags isn't music.
No, it was more like a
nostalgia.
It took me back in time. Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Like I miss my friends and I miss those days to an extent. I love my life now. I wouldn't want to go back in time, honestly. I don't want to be younger. I like where I'm at right now, but I have fond memories of those shows at those venues. And it's all because of this record, dude. Like I bring it back to that. It's this album, dude. It's crazy, man, how influential this album is when you actually like go back and dig it out of your record crate and play it again. If you don't listen to this all the time, you will forget, because I hadn't thought about it in a long time.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's true. Everything you said is true. Cro-Mags was a pivotal punk band. I mean, hardcore punk band. They essentially set off the entire movement of New York hardcore. That was the band that did it, you know? And Bad Brains arguably are the godfathers of American hardcore punk. Yeah. I think they heavily influenced Cro-Mags, and because there was a lot of ties between both the scenes, you know?
Yeah.
DC and what was happening in New York. But I think Minor Threat and Bad Brains were kind of the first two to set off the American hardcore punk explosion, at least on the East Coast. You know, Black Flag and stuff was happening in LA and or whatever. But my timeline might be a little wonky too. But
so this is where I've probably said things that will contradict this in the past, and if that's the case, so what? It is what it is. But I think that this might actually be the point in time where you have the birth of actual hardcore and not hardcore punk, because I think there is a difference there. And the more I learn about this music, the more I realize that I'm a hardcore punk fan and not necessarily a hardcore fan. Like I like hardcore bands. There's a lot of them that I like. I could list about 20 of them right now, but as a whole genre, I think I like hardcore punk more. You know, and for reasons like I'm fixing to explain, like where this album and other albums kind of like this lose me. The longer, more like mid-tempo songs, like Malfunction.
There's a lot of metal on this record.
I'm not into that stuff, man. That song Malfunction is the one where it caught my attention, and I was like, "Ooh, talk about this," because like, you know, the entire song's not bad. The vocal style really complements the faster songs, in my opinion. So like, I thought that the vocals were kind of, you know what I'm saying? Like, if a better vocalist was on top of that song, I'd probably really enjoy it. But it does, but that's just not what was available. It's not what was there. It's not what happened. The riffs are heavy. They make me want to bang my head, but the vocals take me right out of that song. And then that's what a lot of like modern day hardcore bands do. And that's what I don't like about it. I like speed with my music. This is why I like thrash metal and not like other kinds. You know what I'm saying?
This album has a lot of feel, you know, it's got a lot of slower parts and kind of groove, but they also take a lot of elements of like oi at times. And they have some street punk kind of aspects to their music too. The Cro-Mags are interesting because they draw influences from like UK 77 stuff, just regular straight up hardcore punk and metal.
Well,
Motorhead,
even
and even like thrash. Like
a lot. There's a lot of
you know?
Motorhead in this. A lot, like
Yeah,
on the
I
riffage
mean,
side of things, like on the riffs and stuff. Oh, dude, tons of it.
but like their guitars, like I mean, it sounds like Iron Maiden at parts, or like
Yes.
you
Well,
know,
there's like this. That's kind of like where you get the crossover from. Is
right? It's like
it's like this.
crossover.
There's like a little bit of that gallopy, like fantastical metal sound within thrash metal. And so you're gonna get that naturally in a band like this. Like the very next song after Malfunction, I think it's the song Street Justice. Uh Dude, it's really good. There's even like double bass in that song, which kind of caught me off guard. You know what I'm saying? So like you get these faster songs and you can hear a little bit of, can you imagine what it's like being a young punk kid in 1985, 84, 86, and you're not really into the Sex Pistols, but you kind of like punk. Maybe you like the Ramones because they're real fast, but you really like metal. And you're like, yeah, but you also don't want to have like
Yeah,
the goofy like dragons and crap, right? But you got something to say at the same time. And so like bands
yeah.
like Bad Brains are coming out, Minor Threats coming out. It was
Mm-hmm.
help Agnostic Front, I think, too. So like
Agnostic Front was around the same time.
yeah,
Yeah,
so you have all these bands coming out there, like, oh, they're adding this little bit of like the hair's getting a little longer, denim vests are coming in to
right.
play. I mean, I'm being silly, but like, that kind of look is starting to infiltrate
right.
punk, which is creating a new kind, which became hardcore.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, here's the thing, like I'm not an expert on the CBGB scene, but there was a first wave, which was like the Ramones and Television and all those bands, Blondie and all that stuff that happened in, CBGBs in the late 70s. Once all that shit died out in like 1980, the New York hard punk scene was kind of at a lull for a minute,
Yeah.
So that's when the faster kind of what you would know is like hardcore punk bands started to kind of come in and take shape in like the smaller clubs. And then eventually the CBGB Sunday matinee show started happening. And that's where you'd get all the bands like Cro-Mags, Agnostic Front, Murphy's Law, fucking Sheer Terror, doing these like gnarly shows. And that scene was really violent.
Well,
and
yes.
And also you can tell like from the lyrics, like these are kids on the street, this is like menacing hardcore punk music. Like this is music that fools that are out there doing dirt,
right.
Are listening to. And it's not, in contrast to 7 Seconds, like the really positive kind of youth crew, straight edge, like optimistic.
Well, I was gonna say
type
exactly
of
that.
music.
Sorry for cutting you off like that, but
no, okay.
What I was gonna say is there's a certain meanness with this stuff, with like Sheer Terror, Agnostic Front, Cro-Mags, that you didn't necessarily hear with like Minor Threat and Bad Brains. They were all about a positive change, whereas you get the stuff on the East Coast where they were all about survival. And those are different, ways of thinking. That's a different obstacles, that's different lifestyle. It's different. So you may have a similar idea on what you want your music to sound like, but when you actually put it into practice and play the songs, they're gonna sound different. There's gonna be a different edge to this. Not that those other songs were weak by any stretch of the imagination. Those were amazing songs. They're powerful in their own right, but these songs mean something a little different. I wouldn't say it's better or worse. It's more like they just pivoted over and they run parallel. This is what this means. This is what this means. There's not a competition on which one's better. They're just different. But I think all those bands, you take Minor Threat, Bad Brains, Sheer Terror, Agnostic Front, Cro-Mags, you give all those bands a few years and you end up with something like the Satisfaction is the Death of Desire. You end up with like an early Hatebreed album, or like Lowest of the Low Terror, or and then you go even further down the line and you end up with bands like Haywire. Like you really do, man. Like look, that band live, I bet you that's what those kids were feeling. What I felt the last couple of weeks watching Haywire play live, look, man, I like the songs on their records quite a bit, but their live show, completely different monster. Like I was like, oh wow, I haven't seen something like this in 20 years. Now, I'm not saying it hasn't existed. I'm just saying like I haven't seen it. So like I thought it was awesome. And I feel like, man, we still have these bands that are influenced by this amalgamation of sounds brought to us from like, I don't know, 4 or 5 different pillars of the very rapidly changing punk rock scene that turned into hardcore. It's interesting, man. You know, the first time I heard "Don't Tread on Me" and there's a Gank vocal part, I got goosebumps, and it brought me to like a live music setting. I thought, man, I would love to have seen this live. I would give anything to be able to travel back in time and watch an early or mid '80s Cro-Mags show in New York. I bet it was scary. If I'm honest, I bet it was scary. If you were can you imagine being like some suburban kid that doesn't really know what you're getting into, and then you show up at that show, and you're just like, I'm good. I'm gonna go back and listen to whatever power pop album I was listening to before I got here.
Yeah. I mean, again, I never actually gave this album a fair shake until now. I listened to their later stuff. Yeah, the one that came out, I think maybe after this, Best Wishes. I mean, so there's a lot of like drama between the band members and beef and shit. In fact, I think, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but Harley Flanagan actually got shanked at a Cro-Mags show. Like he went to go see or showed up at because the band split up, and there's the Cro-Mags and Cro-Mags.
Yeah, I knew they had some drama
issue with the name, and then like
that was common back then with stuff like that.
I like Harley Flanagan's version of the Cro-Mags better than John Joseph's. If I'm being honest, I'm more of a Harley guy, you know.
Well, the only album I ever listened to from them was this one, which is funny because you had the opposite experience.
You probably wouldn't like if you don't like the more crossover thrash stuff. Then
I don't.
That's where they go later.
Well, right? Okay, like if I'm honest,
the direction they headed.
When I first heard this, I didn't really care for it. If I'm really honest about it, I didn't like this until my friends were playing bands like this with the Iron Age, and then I was like, oh, I had to like revisit it and go, oh, now I understand their band more, and it made me like Cro-Mags more. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like not being into a band and then seeing them live and it changes your mind. It was similar to that. It was like I didn't really care. I didn't like dislike them. I had the album. I liked it okay. But I didn't like love it. And then I heard my friends' bands play. And, I remember I barely knew the guys in Iron Age at the time, right? And my friends telling me like, hey, dude, like Tarpey, he's got a new band. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. He's like, they're playing. You want to go see him? I'm like, yeah. I remember seeing them play and be like, oh, wow, this is different, man. I was like,
well, you're not big into those types of riffs, like the metallic riffing. You're more of a rock.
It's not even that, man. I don't like the lyrical content. I don't like the clothing. It's all the other stuff. The riffs are fine. It's like all the stuff that goes along with it. I don't care for
the lyrical content. Just like
because like I'm very much into a punk rock lyrical content. I like stuff that's got a message, not so much a fantasy story. I'm saying like and some of that stuff has got very political stuff too. I'm not saying it doesn't. I like what I like, and the reasons I don't like metal is very probably stupid, honestly.
What I'm saying is on the Age of Quarrel, they're just talking about street shit, pretty much.
Yeah. On Age of Quarrel, my reason I didn't like it back then is I just didn't. Yeah, I guess it was probably the metal riffs. I guess I've always kind of liked early '80s thrash metal, and this is very much pulls from that, directly, right? I don't know. I think back then I just didn't want to hear metal in my music. I wanted to hear punk and hard. Like even when I was listening to hardcore, I was always like, why are they playing so much metal? Which is why I don't even understand why I like Integrity and Wisdom and Chains so much. Because like the moment I heard those bands, I was like, I like this. Whatever this is, I like this.
But that's kind of what like thrash metal pulled from. They pulled from all like the UK 82 shit anyway.
Yeah, but what are you talking about?
Discharge, all the crust bands and stuff.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about Integrity and Wisdom and Chains.
I know, but what I'm saying is like you can kind of draw the line from thrash metal back to that stuff in some way, right? Like even with Cro-Mags on this record, I can hear a lot of UK crusty stuff too.
Sure, but my point was that I don't even know why I liked those bands because I liked early thrash, but whenever I first started hearing those bands, I was only listening to like punk and like the most metallic music I got into was maybe Terror, which isn't really metallic, or at least their early stuff wasn't. I guess I liked Hatebreed. I think what it is that I like a little bit of everything, but I'm incredibly picky with what I like. So, like, do I like metal? Like, as a whole? Not really. But are there metal bands I like? Yes, there's metal bands that I really like. There's metal albums that I cherish. But, like, I wouldn't call myself a metalhead. The only genre that I really like most of, I think, is punk. And that's probably, but I don't know. This album is incredible, and I'm glad that we decided to. I don't even remember who picked it. One of us did, but I don't remember.
It was me.
Was it you?
Yeah.
I'm glad that we listened to it because I hadn't heard it in a while, and it actually made me go back and listen to Iron Age again, and it made me do some research, which the only reason I even brought up Iron Age wasn't even because I was reviewing this, is because I was reading up on this, and somebody in some magazine or article or something said the closest you could ever get to an 80s Cro-Mags experience was at an early Iron Age show, and I thought, holy crap, I was actually there. I remember that. And that's what made me think about it. That's probably why I wrote so much about it, because I was thinking about that because of that. But
what are some standout tracks for you on this record?
let me go back and look at my list of stuff. Hold on one second. I know I liked, let's see, Don't Tread on Me was awesome. Let's see, Face the Facts I think I liked quite a bit. Hold on, let me pull them up again. I would say more songs than not I enjoyed quite a bit.
Cool.
Yeah, like the album as a whole, I think I ranked pretty high. Street Justice is probably my favorite one. Hard Times.
That's a good one. I like Hard Times.
Yeah, Street Justice, Hard Times, Don't Tread on Me, Face the Facts, and Doing to Others. There's a good chunk of songs towards the end that are really, really strong.
Yeah.
But I'd say, like, overall, the album is really good. And I like that it's 15 songs, 34 minutes. That's pretty nice. I'd say if I had to give it like a 1 through 10 rating, 8.5 or so. Like, good. It's very good. Very, very good. Very good. For an album that I wouldn't normally listen to, like most people that know me wouldn't think I would even like this. So I think that's a pretty...
Is this something that you'd spin on your own at a later time if you don't have to listen to it, or no?
Yes, but I would probably skip 1 or 2 songs, so it might be a playlist album more so than an LP album.
You'd skip Malfunction. Got it.
Probably.
It's all good.
Although if I had it on like vinyl, I don't know that I would fret. I might just throw it on and play it all the way through. Because I didn't like actively dislike the song, but if it was easy to not listen to it, I probably wouldn't.
The production's pretty bad on this album, though. I gotta be honest.
Oh, you thought so? I liked it.
There's this kick drum. There's this really like, it varies from song to song, but there's this like tapping on the kick drum for the first like 2 songs. I think it's on World Peace and maybe the We Gotta Know too, but it's just super annoying, and I don't know. I couldn't get over it.
It's all about perspective, man. You play drums, you're gonna hear stuff I definitely won't hear.
Yeah, it was like this little like click, click, click sound, and I don't know. I mean, what am I gonna expect from this band? You know what I mean? Like they were like just a little fucking scruffy hardcore band from New York that put together a record in '86. It's like you're not gonna get a.
I had a good time listening to it, and it put me in a good mood, and it reminded me of my friends. I thought that was cool, dude. Anybody that wants to relive early Cro-Mags and doesn't know who Iron Age is, just go listen to Constant Struggle, man. Go listen to that album. It sounds like a Cro-Mags album, slightly different vocals, but other than that, it sounds. I mean, even the production sounds very similar. The guitar tone, man, what a good time. I like being this age because I get to understand things a little bit better. I've had more time to learn more and just kind of like simmer with these albums. And then there's also a lot of stuff that we listen to that I never really cared about until now. And I'm giving myself the chance to go back and rediscover stuff. And I think that's healthy. And even when I read that book, the Rebel Girl book by Kathleen Hanna, bro, I couldn't tell you how long it's been since I sat down and listened to a Bikini Kill album, but I went and listened to some. And I've always liked La Tigre too. So like, growing and sitting down with old music is important. Like, but growing with albums that you maybe didn't care about. You need to give things a second chance.
I completely agree with that.
And I didn't used to feel like that. I didn't used to behave like that at all. So yeah, Cro-Mags, dude. Age of Quarrel. What do you get? How about you on your favorite songs in like a grade for this one? I can't believe you never really messed with this album until now.
It was just one of those records. I didn't, for whatever reason, it was on my radar, but it was on the periphery. I didn't really give it a fair shake. But today I sat down. I took a walk and I listened to the whole thing, and it was great. World Peace is a good song. Show You No Mercy, Street Justice, Survival of the Streets, I liked a lot. It's the Limit is a good one. Hard Times is a banger. By Myself. Pretty much the whole entire second half of the record. I like all of it. I really,
Do you ever listen to bands like Righteous Jams?
No, I don't listen to
You're
it.
too East Coast, bro. West Coast, bro. You're so California.
I don't
Like,
listen to a lot of thrash and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Righteous
I like.
James is like a hardcore band.
I know. I don't. I mean, I, I have phases that I go through with music a lot, right? So
For
I'll
sure.
like really get into like New York or East Coast hardcore for like a short amount of time, then I'll get sick of it, and then I'll just kind
I
of be
mean,
like,
everybody does that.
and then I'll listen to like a ton of reggae for like a month or 2 months, and I'll be like, all right, that's enough of that. Then I'll listen to almost exclusively hip hop for like a fucking month, and I'll be like, okay, that's cool. And then I'll go back to listening to my East Bay punk stuff, and I'll be like, okay, that's cool. I just like scratch these itches whenever, but I there's certain bands that I should know about, but like they're not on my radar. You know what I mean? And maybe I'm sleeping. Maybe I should know about them.
You should go check out Righteous Jams. I'd love to hear.
I'll put them on my list.
Specifically, Rage of Discipline. Like, just listen to that. That's the one that like I never really put the 2 and 2 together. Like until recently when I listened to this album again, I was like, oh yeah, that's why I recognize the Righteous Jams vocals. They sound like Cro-Mags vocals. Like it was funny, man. Like, just I'm older now and things made more sense than they used to.
Righteous Jams?
Dude, I didn't even used to think about this stuff. Back in the day, you could have told me like, oh man, these guys are a derivative of this band, and then they have some of this influence, and I'd have been like, yeah, dude, I don't care. I'm gonna go mosh and go drink a beer, and that's it. And I wouldn't have cared at all, dude.
Yeah.
Dude, I spent so much time throwing up foam in the parking lot of these clubs because I'll be moshing on a full stomach of beer.
Mm-hmm.
Bro,
that's funny.
Puking foam, my man. Good times, dude. All right, now let's move on.
Look, I know there's a lot more to talk about. About Cro-Mags as a band, like their history is crazy.
We weren't talking about that though.
I know.
This was strictly a conversation about that album.
This is a very short. This is for the comment section.
They're not going to even hear this. This isn't even going to be in there. It's going to be cut off by now.
Damn it.
It is what it is, man. You had your chance, Nitty.
I missed my chance. Dude, the Cro-Mags are interesting fucking band to read about.
I might do a video on their history or something so I can just learn about it because I don't know a lot about it, and they're a good band.
Yeah. Dude, the Stimulators is another band I want to check out. I didn't realize that Harley Flanagan's aunt was in that band.
Well, if you stimulate your prostate, I mean, I heard that was a lot of fun.